That's really funny. I wish we would have got that 10 seconds ago. But for anyone watching, I said Michael's jockey is wonky, meaning whoever's riding that horse in the background. And and what did you say?
I said it's a samurai and he's riding uphill.
Anyway, with all that being said, welcome back to episode 2 of the As You Should podcast. We took a very long hiatus, and at the time of recording it is quite literally almost a year since we did anything about it. But life gets in the way. So we're gonna go for 2 episodes in a row. So we're gonna record this and then record episode 3 straight after. So hopefully it won't be as long of a wait for the next one. We did record this episode once already, but we kind of thought let's kind of revamp it a bit and not be so serious. I don't know about you, but I was just I was really nervous to get things out and
Yeah, I
sound
was as
smart
well.
and
Yeah,
whatever. And we
yeah,
just
yeah.
that's just not us, man. Which is fine. We have our
No,
moments. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but we'll go with our gut this time. So what are we talking about today, Michael?
Today, if I remember rightly, we were talking about an article on It's Nice That, which had some things to say about whether non-working class people should photograph in working class spaces.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember rightly, part of the context of that was a project that was done in Jaywick in
Mm-hmm.
Essex, which is I think currently the most economically deprived area in the UK.
Yeah.
And I think essentially it's about tourism. It's poverty tourism, sort of people finding an aesthetic in poverty and whether that's an ethical thing.
Mm-hmm. And
And my sort of gut reaction is I would say no. Personally, it's not.
yeah. Well, I guess the kind of first question that always comes up is who are you? Like where have you come from? Why do you think it's fine and okay to just implement yourself in this space? Because I know, doing my own projects where you're kind of going into a space and there's a topic there that you as an outsider you're coming in to look at and to say something about. What's the point of you saying anything? What do you as an individual have to add to the conversation? A friend of mine, he did a project on quite, I won't go into details, but quite an extensive, quite a historically big crime that happened in the UK, and he went and photographed the town that it happened in. And he was at uni during the time, so his kind of thought process was oh yeah, this will look really cool, and it will kind of get me a good grade and all of this, and it will kind of do all of these interesting historical things. But speaking to him about it now, he really regrets making that project, because it's well, I have absolutely zero connection to this place. That I shouldn't be there, and I'm only there for my own gain of oh, look at these photos that I took.
I feel like that's the crux of it, especially with our generation of photographers. It's all, if you're at uni, it's about, oh, what gets me a good grade, or what gets me loads of likes on Instagram.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I mean, I know definitely when I was first, I suppose, I mean, even in that article, it mentions more, it's almost like bait for more emerging artists and photographers.
Definitely.
Because you're using it to figure out the kinds of things that that you'd want to photograph and that you'd want to point your attention to, and you're kind of learning how to look at things and how to question things. But you are also like learning at your craft at the same time.
Yeah, you're almost not mature enough for
Yeah,
that subject matter at
yeah.
that time. Yeah.
But not that it's like, again, not that it's okay, but I think for a lot of people it is kind of necessary to go through that thing, um,
Mm.
just to know not to do it, just so that you have in
Yeah.
your head of just like, okay, all right, this is something that exists. I have to know my place in it.
Yeah.
Um, and but like with the Jaywick project by Sandra Mikiewicz, um, her kind of portrayal of it was more coming from the people. It was really collaborative.
Yeah. It's quite
Because
an upbeat and happy project.
mm, because
Whereas if you
go on.
go, um, I say it's quite an upbeat and happy project in comparison to like, I don't know, I've seen stuff made like in Bradford
Mm,
and cities like that, and they're always very, very depressing projects to look at. And it's so sort of one dimensional, and it is sort of a thing of I'm going to concentrate on this one thing, take advantage of this. It's going to create this aesthetic. It's going to get me loads of attention, loads of social media likes, and make me look like this massively humanistic, altruistic photographer. Very early on in my career, but then like it's kind of an unethical thing.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you're using that for your career at the end of the day, and not
yeah,
uh for the kind of act of taking pictures of it. Well, I mean, there was the very last photographer that is mentioned. Bear with me. Groff Tan.
yeah.
Um, so where was this photographed? Uh, bu- 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 I can never read like on the spot. But anyway, somewhere around the UK.
Yeah,
Um, and there's one photo that the article mentions, and it states of just like a young boy like running up a hill, and
yeah,
he has no connection to this boy, he doesn't know who he is, whatever. But because he's
mhm,
experienced that same thing in that same place for
yeah,
his own childhood, that's him
yeah,
doing it from his respectful place. It's almost like uh I guess like vicariously like living through your past and your photographs, and
yeah, yeah,
um
yeah,
like even like that's something that I'm going back to now in my own work. Like photographing skateboarding has now changed for
mm,
me, because now I'm photographing like the kind of younger generation and everything around them. Like the skating comes, it's actually a very small part of it. Like there's some photos that I'm gonna start printing soon of like the young local boys all just like pushing each other around in a trolley and stuff. And like that's the stuff that like me and my lot
mm,
were doing when I was like 14, 15. And I remember having that
yeah,
internal dialogue of like, oh, like should I be doing this? Like, is it kind of weird? Like, big guy at skate park, like photographing whatever. It's like, well, I've been there since I was like 11. I know
yeah,
absolutely everybody there. Like,
yeah,
I started photographing at all in that space. So if there was like a list of things that you would need to 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 be allowed to do that, then
yeah.
these are the kinds of things that come up. Um,
I think like it has to be some sort of familiar space.
yeah.
So like with my MA project, the banger racers, I
Mm,
grew up loving racing.
sure.
Um, and that particular breed of racing is a predominantly working class um thing because
Mm,
in general motorsports is very, very expensive. It's very, very exclusive, and it's bred that way and it's kept that way.
mm,
Banger racing or stock car racing is this whole other thing, and it's predominantly working class.
mm,
And I felt very, very comfortable being there because had that background growing up enjoying motorsports,
mm,
and I could now comfortably resume something, not just in that place, but with those particular people.
mhm.
if I was inclined to do so.
Hmm. Yeah.
So like familiarity really helps in that sense. And then,
Yeah.
you know, you're talking with the skateboarders, but also with your other ongoing project, which we'll keep stum because I know you're working hard at it. That's also a very familiar thing. I mean, that's quite literally a part of you in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you feel comfortable about it?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you have the right to go and do that project?
Yeah, that's true. But I guess like depending on, where and who you're photographing, like I suppose yes, one would have a right to do XYZ thing, or to carry out a rite of passage for themselves, right? But that's within their world and their understanding. Like with this new stuff, like I had a good few people, like as soon as I like pulled out a camera, just immediately like no, like
Mm,
you take my soul, you know.
yeah.
And you've got to think about like what other people's relationships to photography is, um because we get so excited about it, just as young people, like we're still, like we started this when we was in our mid to late teens, and
Yeah.
that kind of excitement hasn't really gone anywhere. um like I don't know, the same way people like football, like, well, maybe not the same way people like football, but you know what I mean, like that just kind of
Yeah.
intrinsic
Yeah.
thing, like this isn't going away.
Yeah.
um I'm just cautious of time, so I just wanted to. There's a couple of historical people that I wanted to mention in regards
Yeah. Go
to
for it.
this
Go for it.
conversation. I went to see the Bill Brandt exhibition earlier this year at Tate Britain.
I
Um,
missed it.
it was really cool, man. I didn't really
I
know
heard.
all that
Yeah.
much about him beyond like the few really interesting like light and dark like shadow shots, like the one with the late
I have
like that. And
one of his books over there. I'll bring it around at some point.
nice, that'd be good. But one thing that never really occurred to me was that he was a rich man. Because to be photographing in that kind of time period, like you had to be at least fairly well off to have a camera at all.
Yeah.
Um, um, but a good chunk of his work before, the kind of prolific like visual body experiments and perspective and stuff like that was a lot of like daily life um, and documentary kind of stuff. Maybe in a similar way to like Ajay or whatever. And and the ethical thing maybe wasn't um, as much of a constraint as it is now, because it was such a technical marvel.
Mm,
Obviously, like
mm.
every that was something to strive towards. Like everybody wanted that. Um, Whereas like it's kind of unrelated, but I don't know. I saw a meme the other day that was like, oh, however many years ago the internet was an escape from real life, and now it's kind of going the other way. Um and I'm just sorry, I'm seeing you nodding, and that's
Mm,
at my use of
mm.
meme whatever.
It's
And
all it's all here, man. It's all in the good book.
that's so funny. um
Have that
yeah,
on hand
yeah,
all the time.
I bet you do. Crazy. The last person that I want to speak about was Gordon Parks. His
Right.
series, his series in the favelas. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Flavio. So it's shot in 1961 when Parks was commissioned to go to Rio for, I think it was 6 weeks. Blah blah blah. Train of thought. Sorry. And I think they was him and his assistant. They were walking up a hill, and they noticed this boy like carrying a bit of like some water on their head, and they just had this like little interaction, and then the boy like invited them in to stay with them and photograph their lives and poverty and things like that. Well, just their daily life, whatever. And even though Parks grew up in like segregated America, between the 40s and 60s
Yeah.
and things like that, and he wasn't particularly well off or anything. Still seeing that space was a shock to him, and this place are absolutely ridden with disease and places that are barely like 4 walls and a door kind of
Yeah.
thing. And once he'd gone back to America, like gone back to life, and given them all the photos, when the initial print of it kind of came out, there was only one photo of the young boy that was used, or that was going to be used, and he was such an intrinsic part to that story. So I suppose maybe he was the kind of audience surrogate, as it were. But Park seeing that only one photo being used, and he kind of took that as like, right, well, if this story isn't going to get published how I want, like, I'm just going to walk. So he wrote a letter of resignation, and it took that for Life to go like, right, we'll publish a story, like we'll just stay with us, you know. And then that kind of calls into question these like commercial ideas of what ethics are, and because at the end of the day, like, Life is just thinking like, we've just got to sell, like we're a big company, we're a big corporation, like we just got to do whatever we can just to sell this thing. Sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. Maybe I'm not.
Got it?
No, I'm not. Got it. And I'm terrible at keeping my train of thought.
Life magazine, ethics.
Life magazine, ethics, and the kind of, you know, one of the things, the big thing that Parks felt that was necessary was kind of using photography as not, you know, as something to go to kind of be like, oh wow, look at this, like that's like, you know, interesting form, whatever. It's you know, the quote that kind of comes out is like, I pointed my camera at people mostly who needed someone to say something for them, because they couldn't speak for themselves. You know, like nobody's gonna, you know, like people could, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're crying for help, no one's gonna be able to hear you. But somebody with a plane comes by, like they're gonna be able to help you out, kind of thing. So I suppose for Parks, the camera was that plane.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how multifaceted he was as well. Like he wrote Shaft, he wrote
Shaft.
he
started the whole sort of blaxploitation cinema extravaganza phenomenon, like the whole thing.
Yeah,
it's called Parks.
Crazy, man.
Crazy.
Yeah, I need to. He's got a big, extensive collection of books that I will get one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's good dude. Good dude.
Good dude. The other person I think to mention, from sort of a UK standpoint, is Tish Murphy.
Okay.
She had a book called Youth Unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
It was a posthumously made book. I don't think she was actually involved in the making of it, but she was a working class girl from the Midlands. And she was sort of obsessed with photographing the youth at the time, because it was deindustrialization, full Margaret Thatcherism. And she had this inclination to document the youth at the time, because they were like very reflective of what was going on, you know, mass unemployment, and people just sort of sitting around with nothing to do, and just sort of engaging with sort of hedonism and nihilism, and you know, jumping off of buildings and stuff, and like, you know, children smoking, all that sort of thing. And I just lost my train of thought.
I'm infecting you. Because
you got that microphone.
It is good. Shout out Alex for dropping this off.
Yeah, I've my one here, but I still need to get
nice.
I didn't know I needed to get it. I need to get like a little soundboard type thing for it to work. Yeah. So I'm using this at the moment, which is still quite a good microphone.
Decent, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Shout out to Beats. Nobody wears them anymore.
Dr. J is not helping you here, man.
No.
Could you imagine, as you should, brought to you by Beats?
Yeah.
One day. That'll be fun.
When I look in the mirror, LeBron James is staring back at me.
What's that the Kanye and Kobe Bryant ad where he's like, "Be better,
What
more
the fuck
records."
do you mean?
but I'm the best. More records. What the fuck does
You're the
that mean,
same
Kobe
animal,
Bryant?
but a different beast.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that. What the fuck do you mean, Kobe Bryant?
Okay.
I think I had that meme like on repeat
Yeah, I
for
bet you did.
ages. I just loved it.
That's funny. All right, with that, I think we'll call it there.
Yeah.
But this has been good. Yeah, hopefully we'll get this out soon. Actually, soon. This time.
Actually soon. Yeah. We're gonna double down and we're gonna really try and build this thing now.
We're gonna try it. We're gonna do it. Also, thank you to Flynn and Adam, our graphic designers, for our lovely new logo. Also, shout out Richard Wallace for our first graphic design, for our first logo, and all of our friends and supporters. And we'll see you on the next one, and I'll see you in like
2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna make another cup of tea.
All right, sweet.
Sweet.
Bye.
Bye.
Good.